So there is a God of War live-action television series in development at Amazon, and we finally got our first look, and we got people reacting to this first look. So here it is. This is God of War on Prime's Twitter page that posted the following screenshot. It reads right here: Father and son, behold your first look at Kratos and Atreus in the God of War series now in production for Prime Video. Their journey to the highest peak begins. Now let's go ahead and zoom in on the image. And so there are a lot of things about it that I'm like, okay, yeah, it does resemble the God of War 2018 that we played. But there's also been a general sentiment that there are aspects of this that just doesn't look quite right. Now, one thing I'll say is I don't want to fully judge this until I see it in motion in a proper trailer. What this looks to me is almost like a screen test, and it reminds me a lot of like that one video that Netflix published when Henry Cavill got cast as Geralt of Rivia. Remember when that came out and Henry Cavill looked like this as The Witcher? And immediately people are like, okay, it's got all the elements of Geralt, but it doesn't look quite like Geralt, with many people being reminded of like Raiden from the Mortal Kombat movie, or being reminded of like Legolas or Lucius Malfoy. And yeah, I mean, this was a screen test. It didn't give the best first impression, but then the show actually came out and Henry Cavill ended up looking like this, which just looked so much better than what they originally showed, with the eyes and everything and the scruff and the hair being a lot less neat and more disheveled. It just made Geralt's appearance come together in a way that you're like, okay, that is Geralt. So I want to give that benefit of the doubt to this first look at the God of War television show, this Prime show. But it's got that similar vibe of like, it looks a lot like the source material, but there are enough things about it that look off that it doesn't make for the best first impression. And you can see that the online activity is not super enthusiastic about this particular first look, this first image of this live action show, with one of the top comments in the quote tweets of Discussing Films reporting of this saying, "Oh dear," and it garnering, tens of thousands of likes and over 1 million views. Somebody else here saying the thing about adapting video games already look insanely realistic into live action media is that a part of them is inevitably gonna look like an SNL skit. That's the thing. God of War 2018 already looks pretty realistic. The live action looks pretty realistic, but the characters don't look like how we remember them. So first impression is always gonna be, it looks a little off, right? Here's another top comment saying, what does Atreus kind of look like? Hezbollah. Hezbollah, for those who don't know, is this online personality right here, and some people are comparing this Atreus screenshot to Hezbollah. Here's someone else saying, this looks like one of those old YouTube thumbnails with a caption, God of War live action trailer, bruh. Like one of those fake thumbnails. I've also seen plenty of folks state that when they first looked at this image at a glance, it initially looked like it might have been AI, and just a general sense of like, this looks more of like a parody or a skit of God of War rather than the real thing. I really do think that when the trailer comes out, that'll be the true benchmark of like, okay, what can we expect from this series? But I also want to provide my take on what aspects of this photo looks off and how they could have made a much better first impression. The most important thing to nail, of course, is the main protagonist of this series, Kratos. And I think that's where they could have handled aspects of this better. The first thing that sticks out to me is his facial expression. This, to me, is not a Kratos facial expression. Kratos, more often than not, either looks really pissed and really stoic, or he looks solemn. Those are kind of his two main modes. This is Kratos' facial expression, the one that we know by heart. But what we got instead was this facial expression, and what it evokes to me is like confusion, and it almost looks like Kratos is thinking, did I leave the stove on back at home? It's a combination of like confusion and even a little bit of fear, and those are things that you normally don't associate Kratos with. I think they just got a really weird shot of the actor's face. It feels like one of those photos where the subject wasn't ready for the photo, so their facial expression isn't what they wanted it to be. It has that vibe of like getting caught off guard. And I want to emphasize that I don't think Ryan Hurst, the actor who is playing Kratos, is the wrong casting choice. For those who don't know, Ryan Hurst played Thor in the God of War video games, but But beyond that, he's done a bunch of obviously on-camera live-action stuff as well, and he's great. He's a great actor, and I do think he can pull off Kratos. But I think the choices around this actor have to be very specific. His facial expression has to be very specific, and his demeanor has to be very specific to evoke Kratos, because Kratos is just such a specific character. And something that I saw recently is this fan-made, photoshopped version of Ryan Hurst boasting a much more neutral facial expression, and immediately it looks miles better than the first impression official photo posted by the Amazon show. You can see right here, if his facial expression is kept in a very neutral, stoic, and controlled place, it looks like Kratos. But then when you look at the Amazon version, the facial expression here is not that of an individual who is in full control. Again, he just looks like something has startled him, or something's confusing him, or he's pondering about whether, again, like he left the stove on, or, he looks like someone who knows he's fucked up or something. Maybe that's not what they were going for, but it's just how it comes across to a lot of people. The second issue with the live action adaptation of Kratos is the beard. When you really look at Kratos' beard and see how full it is, you realize it makes a stark difference in the character's appearance. And this tweet right here highlighting the difference between the Amazon Prime official Kratos and then this fan-made edit of Ryan Hurst as Kratos, you can see that the beard, when you apply the proper Kratos beard to this actor, it just looks so much better. So yeah, the combination of the facial expression not quite feeling like Kratos, and then the beard not being quite like the Kratos beard we remember, I think those two things that are seemingly small make for a big difference in terms of why this Kratos looks a bit more like a cosplay version of Kratos rather than like the Kratos. Now, some people talk about the actor's physique. I think he looks pretty jacked. I know he doesn't have the abs that Kratos does. And who knows, maybe over the course of the next few days and weeks and months, maybe he'll get more of a training regimen in to hone everything. But I don't envy the task of trying to look like Kratos, because his appearance is so specific and so iconic, and his musculature is very difficult to achieve. And then the last thing that I want to spotlight is that I think there's something about the color grading of this, the saturation of this image, that evokes that sense of cosplay photo shoot, makes it look a little artificial. It's what makes it look kind of fake and like a skit, and not like this very atmospheric kind of world that God of War is. I think the best way I can describe what I'm looking at here is I think the color grading and saturation makes it look like Kratos and Atreus have appeared in a live-action Disney world. When you look at the video game and look at screenshots of it, there is just on top of the colorfulness of it, there's a bleakness to it. There's a coldness to it that adds to the threatening aura of this world that contrasts all of the colorful aspects of this Norse mythology world. And if I flip back and forth between the gameplay screenshot and the Amazon show, I think you'll kind of recognize what I mean of this sense of a threatening, colder world getting lost, and the Amazon version being a little too warm feeling. You can see right here in this screenshot of Kratos and Atreus going on a hunt. I mean, the difference between these two is pretty noticeable in terms of the color grading and saturation. So yeah, that's personally where I'm at with it. And a lot of people, they are still open to seeing more before making a full judgment. But the thing is, first impressions do matter. And I do think they could have made a better first impression with a photo where they had Kratos' appearance just a little more honed in, where his facial expression was more Kratos-like, and where the beard was a little fuller. Just a couple minor modifications that I think would make a huge difference. And just, color grading the photo better so that it grounds this whole photo, makes it look less fairy tale-like, less Disney-like, and gives it a more cinematic look. Am I crazy? I don't know. But I mean, in the response section of this post by Discussing Film, comparing the two, people are saying things like, I'm sorry, this literally looks like a porn parody. It's giving God of Horrors vibes. And there's a tweet that went viral with almost 40,000 likes and almost 1 million views. And so, yeah, the feedback surrounding this one photo has been mixed to negative, just from generally what I'm seeing. It doesn't mean people have completely ruled it out because they haven't seen a trailer, they haven't seen it in motion. But I think a lot of people have the sense of at least this one first impressions, first look photo that they've officially released. It just looks off enough where maybe they would have been better off not releasing this, or at the very least, honing in some things to make the first impression of it better. But with all that said, I'll say again, this feels more like a screen test photo, And if that is the case, hopefully when we do see like a more finalized version of these characters' designs and the atmosphere of the world, we'll be more impressed. I hope they maintain Kratos' very controlled, stoic, somber, angry like facial expressions that are at the core of this character. There's more to the character obviously, but those moments peek through here and there, few and far between. Kratos' default state is not this particular facial expression. And yeah, just fix the beard and just like give the atmosphere that the original game gave. But at the same time, there's also plenty of questions as to whether this God of War live action should even exist when the game is already very cinematic, when the game is already basically like a playable movie. And I guess the counter argument to that would be that, not everyone is a gamer. Not everyone is proficient at video games. And for them to be able to enjoy the story through a different medium, a more passive medium, it's something that will introduce more people to this universe. And I personally see that as a positive, as long as the work itself does justice to the source material. And that's where the big question is. Will this God of War live action show do justice to the source material, where newcomers are able to look at it and really get a good representation of God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, and at the same time, if fans will be able to watch this and be really pleased with the results, and if it'll evoke the same feelings and emotions that came about when they played through the video games. It's about trying to find a balance where they can appeal to both of these audiences. And yeah, it's a fine balance, and it's not a task that I envy, but if they greenlit this show, then hopefully they're up to fulfilling that task. But I suppose only time will tell. In the meantime, though, I'd love to hear what your personal thoughts and opinions are on this first look at God of War's live-action adaptation, and whether you think the image looks good, what adjustments would you make, and what's your general outlook on this show? Do you think it has the potential to do well, or are you skeptical about its ability to properly represent God of War 2018 and Ragnarok? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.